What's happening, guys? Just wanted to make this video because obviously there's quite a large number of people that are interested in finding out a little bit more about, losing body fat, building muscle. These are the sort of first two things people think about when it comes to their goals. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that. Now, obviously, if your goals are outside of those two sort of things, like if you want to get stronger, if you want to enter into CrossFit games, if you want to do gymnastics, if you simply just want to have better posture, this still applies to you because nutrition is extremely important when it comes to understanding your fitness goals. Meaning that, like, if we use the analogy of running a business, it's important to understand both the income and expenses when we're talking about fitness as a whole, right? You can't just focus solely on nutrition and get results, or solely on training and get results. I mean, technically you can, but the same way a business would do it, it wouldn't be efficient. It's important to understand both sides of this, the same way your tax accountant would need to see. Your tax accountant doesn't want to know just the income or just the expenses. He needs to know both, just so he can make a comparable decision and make sure that it's declared accurately and collect that data. So what I've done for you guys in here is I've broken down something referred to as a Harris-Benedict formula. It's generally the go-to formula to find out how many calories in theory someone would need based on things like their weight, their height, their age, their sex, and of course their lifestyle. So we're going to kind of go through this video step by step today, and I'm going to make sure you guys understand what this all means. Right now, you might be looking at it like all confused and stuff, but I've actually worked with an Excel expert on this as well. And, we've actually dumbed this down as much as possible, make it as simple as possible. As you can see, this is the new version of the TDEE and macro breakdown. So we're going to keep things really, really simple and just start with your TDEE. That stands for your total daily energy expenditure. Meaning that we need to understand, in theory, this is all theoretical, roughly how many calories you burn just, both doing nothing and comparably to your lifestyle. I say comparably to your lifestyle because it's important to understand that every single day is going to be slightly different. For example, some days you're walking the dog, some days you're not, some days you're out doing adventures, some days you're sitting at the desk doing not very much, and that's okay. It's important to understand that the number we're going to work out today is based on an average, and quite a close average, right? We're going to start off working out what is referred to as your basal metabolic rate, meaning the calories you burn essentially doing nothing, and then add to that based on your lifestyle, right? So let's go through one by one. I'm going to use myself as an example. Over here, we're going to start off with the input section. So my weight, this is just going to be a rough estimate right now. If you know the accurate number, that's going to be much better. So I'm about 80 kilos, could be 81, could be 79. We want to get like as accurate as possible. That's going to give us the best sort of results. My height, I know, is 177. And again, we're using a metric system here. And my age right now, 30, I'll be turning 31 this year. So gender, male. This is the bit that kind of gets people a little bit. So when we're talking about lifestyle and job, like I said before, this is going to be a little bit tricky for some people because I know so many athletes, they're complete athletes, weapons, they're just active all day long, they exercise. And they're very modest as well. They kind of tend to be like, oh no, I'm average, or I'm inactive, or anything like that. And on the flip side, you get many people who are extremely lazy and they're just like, oh yeah, I'm very, very active, right? So, it's important to understand that this is going to determine a lot of your calories and a lot of your results. And we want to make sure that that's kind of as accurate as possible. So general sort of guidelines I like to give is making sure that it's not going to be perfect, but I want you to understand that, lying about this isn't really going to help or work in your favor, right? I know for a fact that I'm going to be the above average because I'm actually exercising 6 days a week. I don't think I'm a complete athlete like compared to a lot of people who go to the gym every single day and have active jobs. I have quite a sedentary job, but I am active in the gym. So I'm just going to go in the active section here. Okay, so what is determined here, it's worked out my weight, my height, my age, my gender. It's used those sort of 4 metrics first to determine my BMR. and my BMR will come to 1,761. So if I was doing nothing, that's how many calories I would have to consume to maintain my body weight. Just for context, that would be someone who's in a coma, for example. Now, based on my lifestyle, we're multiplying that number by 1.8, right? And that's going to give me my RMR, or my total daily energy expenditure, meaning that based on my activity level, based on my lifestyle, this is predicting that I should be consuming 3,170 calories to neither gain nor lose weight. Notice I say weight, not necessarily muscle or fat loss, just maintain weight. Everything we're kind of going through is based on weight, right? So that's just to kind of figure out maintenance. So that's why I put it in like amber, or that yellow sort of zone in here. Now, when you see this sort of red section here and the green section, this is where we talk about calorie surplus, and this is where we talk about a calorie deficit, right? So we've based these numbers based off a 20% decrease and a 20% increase. Now, those numbers could vary slightly. Like if you don't want to go as harsh and you want to go 10% or increase or 10% decrease, that's fine as well. You can even take it a little bit further and go, 30% increase or 30% decrease. But what's important to understand is that 20% tends to work really, really well for most people, and it works well from a sustainability point of view. Going to 30 is going to be extremely uncomfortable. So you can imagine what a lot of people are going through when they're doing like these 1,000 calorie diets. It's way too big of a deficit. And then from a surplus point of view, same thing. We want to make sure that this is sustainable and we're not just getting extremely overweight. We want to make sure that we're building lean muscle mass and doing that gradually over time. So these three things help you determine what kind of goals you're striving for. Now, a lot of people, when we talk to them, they have fat loss and muscle building goals. That's great. That's what a lot of people want. My sort of suggestion on that would be to stick to one. Is it muscle building or fat loss? Which one's more of a priority for you? If you're someone who's extremely skinny, perhaps, it might be worth you just focusing on getting into focusing on muscle building. And if you're extremely overweight, it might be just better off for you to just focus on a calorie deficit. And if the opposite goal, like muscle building or fat loss, if the opposite happens during, just treat it like a bonus. And that way you won't be kind of disappointed if your focus was muscle gain and you do gain a little bit of body fat, but that's going to be okay because you're going to be focusing primarily on the muscle gain aspect. So hope that kind of is all making sense so far. Now, of course, you can focus on maintaining. So if you do have a lot of body fat, if you're carrying a lot of body fat and you don't have much muscle mass, you can simply stay at a maintenance level, assuming you have a sort of, adequate body weight already, and you just want to, transition for more muscle mass and less body fat. You can do that as well, right? Again, this is all kind of in the air in regards to your choices. I'm not here to tell you you have to do a calorie surplus or I have to do a calorie deficit. I'm explaining this in a way for you to understand that this is your decision and you need to stay consistent for a large period of time. So again, muscle building, you want to focus on, getting into a calorie surplus and staying there consistently for quite a while. I'm talking like 2 to 3 months minimum. Right. Same thing in a deficit. If you're in a deficit for a week and then you go into a surplus, not consistent enough. You need to make sure that you understand that you need to be progressive over time. One thing I kind of want to add in here is, again, this is all based theoretically. So even if you were to consume 3,170 calories, you might find that it's actually quite close to your maintenance, but you might gain or lose weight. So by that very definition, you're actually either in a calorie deficit or a calorie surplus. You need to adjust accordingly. This is to give you that initial prediction and give you the initial understanding of where you can start and then adjust accordingly. Your metabolism does adapt over time. So it's important that you regulate that and you move with it and you work with it, not kind of get stuck with these literal numbers that you see here. Okay, so right now, right up until this point, we've kind of worked out what your TDEE is. Again, this is using myself as an example. What you need to do is put in your own stats and then make that comparison in there to give you that initial number. Now we're going to move into something that is slightly kind of next stage, and that's your macronutrients. For anyone who's unaware, your macronutrients are simply protein, fats, and carbohydrates. So in general, these are the sort of suggested amounts that I give to our students, and making sure that they understand that these three things are all relative based on some of the aspects that I've put into here as well. So in general, we want to start off with protein. Protein is arguably the most important macronutrients, mostly because so many people struggle to get enough of it. And again, this is so important for our diet. Generally, I like to aim for 1 to 2 grams per kilogram of body weight. So assuming that the average is going to be 1.5, right? So for myself, if my body weight is 80, I'll be trying to aim for an average of 120 grams of protein, right? So this kind of stays even across the board, whether it's gaining muscle, whether it's losing fat, we want to make sure that I'm getting sufficient protein, right? Your fats in here, I like to aim for a 1 gram per kilogram of body weight. Men can get away with a little bit less, which is fine. But, you know, in general, most people are just going to benefit by having that simple 1 gram per kilogram of body weight. So again, it's going to give me 80, 80, 80 all across the board, right? Now, this is the bit where a lot of people kind of get mistaken, and the carbohydrates is going to be the sort of remaining amount of calories divided by 4, because there's 4 calories per gram of carbohydrates. So what that means is, depending on if you chose calorie surplus or if you're at maintenance or in a calorie deficit, that is going to determine our carbohydrate intake. So again, it's simply making sure that you have the difference. You notice that protein and fats generally stay even across the board. Again, 120, 120. That helps us understand that it's going to stay very consistent, and carbohydrates are simply going to fill in the gaps based on the remaining calories that we need. So hope this kind of all makes sense so far. I wanted to make this video. I'm not sure how long it's been going for so far, but yeah, you know, I respect the fact that this is probably going to be a little bit overwhelming and may seem a bit confusing to some people. If you need to rewatch it, I do recommend that you do. It's going to be extremely valuable for you, just to simply understand what you need to be doing to understand what amount of calories you should be consuming, right? So if you have any questions, please just post them inside of our Facebook group, or you can send a message to anyone from our team, and we can try and send this across to you as well, just so you have a copy. Again, there's many of these online too, so don't get caught up in the fact of which one's better, which one's worse. This is, again, predicting your theoretical intake. All the numbers are going to be relatively similar, and you don't need to get bogged down in the, you know, perfectionist mindset. So my suggestion, go work out your TDEE based on this calculation. Work out if you want to be in a calorie deficit, if you want to be in a calorie surplus, if you need to stay at calorie maintenance. From that, you can start to work out your macronutrient intake, and then that's it. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.